Good morning. Let's just see if we're live. I believe that we just might be. Yes, we are. All right, Facebook. Happy Tuesday. Happy Tuesday. It is Tuesdays at 10ish. And I am Cecilia Marlowe with the Federal Savings Bank, also known as your mortgage mom. And we got a lot of mommy stuff to talk about today. I am here today with the amazing real estate broker, Miss Latesha Steele, who is just such an advocate for her clients and is really out here working hard in the business right now. And today we are coming to talk to you about buyers beware. Now, who might they be being aware of, if that's a thing? Uh, I think that in this market, Latesha, what we're seeing is a whole lot of activity. We have a plethora of buyers that are out there. They're searching for their dream home. We do have limited inventory. And so many buyers right now are actually in multiple offer situations. They're looking at properties that are coming on the market same day. I mean, they are really working you guys tail to the bone, as my grandmother used to say. But I think that sometimes we get in our own way. And so today's conversation, buyer beware, is really an intentional conversation to share with buyers some of the things that they can do to make their home search process a lot easier, and how to really, really lean on their team as it relates to not only looking for property, but also executing when they find that perfect home that they actually love and they've fallen in love with, and it's the one, as I say. So, Miss Latesha, we've been in conversations and like many real estate brokers, even amongst themselves, around just how busy the market is, and time management, how we need to be effective around making sure that you're not just out looking, right? That if you're looking at a property, it's actually one that you are going to execute on quickly, like before you leave the property even, maybe. But I also noticed that there are some things that are getting in buyers' way as they are looking at properties, and they might want to go and think about it, or as we used to say maybe a year or two ago, go home, pray on it, and then come back and let me know what you want to do. No more time for that. You got to pray the night before, such that when you actually find that property, that you're ready to rock and roll. But I wanted you to specifically, as a real estate broker and the one that's out there after I've given you the pre-approval letter for the client, talk about what you're seeing on the buyer's end and some of the ways in which they are getting in their own way as it relates to executing a good solid offer and then having that offer to be accepted.
Well, I'd like to thank you so much for the introduction, Cecilia, Mortgage Mom. I do appreciate you having me this morning for Tuesdays at
Absolutely.
10.
Yay.
But I would like to just go back to the point you were making about the market. Just July alone, there was a record of 52.1% based on the traffic increase of buyers. And so, with that being said, we are literally, again, in a seller's market where, as you mentioned, properties are going on and our buyers are wanting to get to that property to make a determination or evaluate it to the point they want to make an offer. However, like you indicated, for me, meeting with those buyers prior to us going out is very imperative that we understand exactly what we're looking for. Again, because the inventory is very low, we need to understand what we're looking for. We need to the buyer to understand what they actually meet, what criteria they have that we need to meet with the properties that we're looking at. So in order for us to do that, the buyer needs to make sure that they are always aware and keep in mind their, again, purchase price, as well as the numbers that will affect what that bottom line or that payment will look like, or if in fact that property is even attainable for them. So we need to make sure, again, once, that the buyers are definitely considering the information prior to them indicating, oh, this is what I want. And I do have, for me, uh, when I am searching for properties, because the inventory is very low, clients tend to want to help you find the property that they're looking for. And in that instance, they may be finding the properties that meet the income in terms of their purchase price, but they are not considering all the other components that come with that approval. So again, I believe that that is first and foremost where our buyers really need to hone in on what they actually qualify for in terms of that purchase.
Wonderful. And so when we're talking about some of the things that are going into the actual purchase and the monthly payment, right? Because I think that's what you're speaking specifically to. So, for example, if I have an individual who I have pre-approved for a single family FHA loan, right? And we've actually talked through. So there's a difference between, the pre-approval amount and what you want to spend. Let's talk about that first. Okay, because if you want to spend $1,200, then the $300,000 house is probably not in your budget. Okay, so one of the conversations that I have with the buyer as a lender is, what do you want to spend? And then we work the numbers backwards from there based on, the areas that you've suggested that you're interested in, as well as, we're looking at the real estate taxes for that area. But if I have approved you for a single family home with an FHA loan, then you should not go and ask your real estate broker to take you to go see a condo that is not FHA approved. Okay. Condos are they have their own set of financing rules that are associated. So in the event that you're going to switch gears, we probably want to circle back and have another conversation, because we also, at that point, are going to need to add in assessments to your monthly payment. Right. So that changes some of the dynamics. Now, that's not to say that you can't actually be approved for a single family home and or a condo if you have an FHA loan, because our bank actually does have a condo department, and we can help with the steps that it takes to getting that condo FHA approved. But that is also a process, right? So if your lease is up in 60 days and you switch gears from a single family home to now wanting to see a FHA or a condo that's not yet FHA approved, we might have some timing challenges, right? So I have to stop and pause, pump the brakes for just a second, because we have the illustrious Miss Sanina Ellison Jones with us, who has joined us for our session this morning at Tuesdays at 10ish.
Good
Good
morning. Good
morning.
morning. Happy Tuesday at 10ish.
Happy Tuesday. I'm going to mute Madam Latesha there just so we don't get an echo. Thank you for joining us. I know that you wanted to weigh in on this conversation as it relates to, buyer beware, and buyers really setting expectations for themselves as they're out, looking for their dream home, first home, move up home. What are some of the things that you're actually seeing in the market right now as it relates to, let's talk about maybe some unrealistic expectations that a buyer may have?
I'm having some connectivity issues. Can you hear me okay?
Yep, we sure can.
Okay, great. So I actually just wanted to jump in really quickly and weigh in on the conversation. Good morning. Good morning. Thank you for having me. Super been on this conversation. Listen, 2020 has thrown everyone for a loop. It's an extremely unique marketplace. When I started about 16 years ago on real estate, it was a pretty hot market then, but this is unique and something that I don't think many of us have seen for a very long time. And so that you have these conversations with your professionals before you go out looking for a home. I'm getting a lot of buyers. The buyer always knows what they want, right? And they always have this champagne take. They know exactly what the house needs to look like and what it needs to entail. And the reality is, oftentimes that dream home, it doesn't actually exist. And so we have purchase within the confines of the market. Additionally, we're seeing instead of being able to negotiate with the seller and get concessions and closing cost credits and all of these repairs, we have to give up quite a few concessions on the buyer side. And buyers aren't comfortable with that, and they aren't familiar with that strategy. And so having a conversation with the buyer beforehand, I've found to be extremely important. We already have a buyer consultation here at Chicago Homes. We recommend our agents having before they go out with the buyers. But now an additional component to that is really, really diving deeply into the market and what's going on in the market and what you can expect. I'm working with about 12 buyers right now, half of which have gone under contract. And we're getting outbid every time we submit an offer. And so one of the strategies to employ is, the reality is the market dictates the price point, right? And so if they're asking, 200, we can't come in at 180 and buy a house in 2020 with that strategy. And so a lot of times the buyer wants to get what's called a good deal. Well, the market determines what a good deal is. Unfortunately, we can't go in with a lowball offer that's going to suffice. Seller has a lot more leverage in this market because it's a seller's market, and markets shift. So right now, the current market puts a lot more leverage in the seller's favor. That doesn't mean as a buyer, you're getting a bad deal. That just means you're buying at fair market value, which is okay. And you're buying in an appreciating market. And so when that appraisal comes back, that's your confirmation that I'm not overpaying for the property. I'm paying what the property is worth, or the property actually does have some equity in it. Or best case, the value comes in lower than you actually offered, and the seller is forced to lower the price. So that's the piece that kind of reassures the buyer that they're not overpaying in this market. So that's one of the things that I wanted to offer really quickly, was that, trust your professional, your real estate professional. Our job isn't to get you to go over list price. Our job isn't to get you to overpay for a property. Our job is to help you get your offer accepted. And so that sometimes requires some strategy. And it's not just as simple as throwing at the wall and hoping that it sticks. But if we really want to get this house, we have to make sure that all of the terms of this contract that we may not have paid a lot of attention to before, we're paying very specific attention to now. How quickly can we close? How much is our earnest money? How much is our offer? Do we have our pre-approval? Is it a reputable lender? Now, even the pre-approvals are being compared to each other, because at the end of the day, if we're asking $300,000 and we got 5 offers all offering the same price, what are the differentiations? How are we differentiating one offer from the next offer? And so the strength comes from the other terms of those offers. So often purchase price isn't even the deal breaker. The other terms, do you have strength in financing? Do you have a rehab loan versus an FHA loan? Do you have the right financing to match the property type? Sorry, a long answer to a short question.
Oh, that is all perfect, and really all good information, because I do think that the buyers need to understand all of the different components that go into, the hard work that we're doing on the front end, right? So a lot of times I don't know that the buyer understands that the real estate broker really is doing a lot of the heavy lifting, because you're scouring through, property after property looking for the match, right? Like you're the matchmaker between the buyer and the property, but then you're also facilitating the relationship that's going into making that offer, and making a strong offer. And so all of this kind of comes full circle as we talk about, what should I be expecting as the buyer, right? If you are right now in a place and you're a buyer, you're out here in this market and you are still window shopping, do that from your computer. I'm sorry, I don't mean to be harsh, right? But the buyers that are in the marketplace right now are the ones that are executing offers. I have literally had, buyers who have put offers on, I would say 6 to 8 properties and have been outbid, right? And so you also want to look at the strength of the lender, because I also have had to become more aggressive in this environment and call the agent. When you're making an offer, I have to call that agent now and say, hi, I just want to introduce myself. Do you have any questions about my buyer? I heard she put an offer on your property, right? So that also creates, some influence, for lack of a better word, or relationship, such that, all parties begin the communication and the initial communication of this transaction on the front end. Latesha, before we jump off, I would like to ask you a follow-up question as it relates to buyers. I find are now in a position where they need to expand their search criteria, right? And so, whereas a year ago or 2 years ago, I could say, hey, I want to live in Chatham. I want a 3-bedroom, 2-bath. I want the pretty stainless steel appliances. I want backsplash in the kitchen. I want this. I want that. And I would like to keep my price point right here. Right. What are you finding? And as I am having more and more ongoing conversations with buyers, one of the things that I think buyers can sometimes be reluctant about is expanding, their search criteria. And I always try to give the example of when I was looking for my home, I actually wanted to live in Ashburn. I wanted a 3-bedroom, 2-bath, full basement, big backyard, right? And what I got was what I wind up purchasing, which I love, is a 2-bedroom, 1.5-bath, big backyard. But it didn't, like the initial checklist that I had, right? I began to figure out that I needed to be more flexible. And that that the home that I bought still was very suitable for my needs at that point. But I would probably say for the first, 2 months that I was looking online and before really getting out, I just knew that I had to stay in Ashburn and it had to be a 3-bedroom and it had to have that. So what would you say as it relates to helping buyers to kind of ease their wants versus their needs list as they're out searching and expanding, any search criteria as they're looking for their new home?
Thank you for that. Actually, prior to now, with the market being what it is, prior to us even starting to go out, I have that conversation with the buyer, just letting them know that the inventory is really low and you may not find exactly what you're looking for at this time in this particular area. I often ask, what other areas are attractive to you? And I don't steer, but I do ask, out of the area that you've considered, consider the neighboring neighborhoods and consider those as well, because again, they're limited. The inventory is limited. And initially there is some drawback to that. Buyers tend to think, no, I'll find it. I want to be here. This is what I'm looking for. This is the area because it's close to here, my mom, or close to, the school. However, again, they're reluctant to make that change. After they've been out maybe 2 or 3 times and there's nothing there, then they start saying, how about this area? So I don't think, for me, you can convince the buyer otherwise until they've actually seen that there's not a lot to choose from. Those areas don't hold what they're looking for. So again, it definitely has been, for my buyers that I work with, them to actually have to see and realize for themselves that this is something I should consider in terms of different areas.
So that flexibility that they have typically comes after, they've kind of gotten out there, got their feet wet a little bit, and noticing that, instead of seeing 20 properties in my, desired neighborhood, or where I thought that I was beholden to, there are actually only 2. And guess what? Now, the day that I went to go see it, they're both under contract. So now what else is available?
Absolutely.
Got it. Very good. Is there anything else that you think that buyers should be considering as it relates to them not getting in their own way when they're out searching and looking for their new home?
I think the initial conversation, the initial consultation with the buyer is really helpful. And for me, I have a questionnaire that is very extensive, and it indicates where they actually have to list the things that they're looking for, the criteria that they're expecting me to follow. And once I notice that they've kind of gotten off track, I always refer back to that buyer questionnaire where we can say, okay, if you've made changes at any point of your search or during this time that we've worked together, I need for us to refer back here so that we can note that, so we can both be on the same page to allow you to get the best service that I can provide you. Because if you're making changes along the way without indicating that those changes have occurred, then I don't have a way to either advise you or proceed. So again, my advice would be always stay in communication. Understand that you've hired your broker, your service provider to provide you with a service. And if there are any changes, then we need to have that discussion. Pretty much go back to the playbook. If we're following the playbook, then we'll meet though we'll end up where we want to end up.
I love that.
That's definitely the point that I would make. Stick to the plan.
What I heard you say is stick to the plan and trust your team.
Exactly.
You chose your team for a reason.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Wonderful. Miss Anina, before we wrap up, is there anything else that you would like to share and contribute to the conversation we're having this morning?
Yes. Before we wrap up, I just wanted to share, listen, Letitia's the nice one. Picking her words. Listen, this is a partnership. We are not wizards. We are doing the best that we can with the inventory that is out here in the market. So there's a couple things that you want to look at when you're buying a home. Is this my forever home? Right? And so if this is your forever home, if you're not buying another house after this, then you may want to be a lot more particular. You may want to pay attention to location. Does location and price match? Because the reality is, what I'm finding is, unfortunately, the budget doesn't match up with the area where you want to live or the property's condition. And so there's those three components that you have to take into account. And when that is the case, you have to make modifications or adjustments to your search. Otherwise, you're trying to fit a square into a circle, and that just doesn't work. So we're trying to make sure that based on the wish list you provided us with, we're providing you with the options that the market has to bear. But when you find that property, you have to make a decision and pull the trigger. I love how Madam Cecilia said earlier, we used to be able to go home and pray on it and bring grandmama back and auntie and uncle and cousin. The reality is today, you need to make the decision. I've sat in a car on several occasions now and written up an offer and submitted it in front of a house while people are going in and out of the property, showing the property before and after we came out of the property. So it's a extremely busy market. And we're just trying to make sure that we're able to get you into a home. And then secondarily, if it's not your forever home, look at the purpose of this property. Is this a stair step to get you to your forever home? The benefit of real estate is that the objective is that this property is going to appreciate in value and that there will be some equity to tap into. But the reality is this could potentially be a rental property down the line for you. Or this could be the property that you use as down payment for your next home. So think of a strategy, think of it from a strategic standpoint. And then I also recommend buying a multi-unit property so you can live in one and rent out the other. Here's the thing about a multi-unit property. Unfortunately, you may not get the white picket fence with the big backyard and the ensuite bedroom and the walk-in closet because it's a multi-unit property. The functionality exists already. The structure of that property exists already. So can you make some concessions on the checklist of things that you want to have in a home in order to be able to live how you want to live down the line, where you use multi-unit property to build wealth that you can actually build, down payment for that future dream home that you do want. So I just always suggest having a strategy, having a plan, and going into this, a lot less emotional and a lot more strategic.
Absolutely.
I so love that. I always say that the first home is typically not the dream home. That's the one that gets your feet wet. Let's just see how much cleaning you got to do on Saturday. So, there are so many different, ways and approaches to looking at real estate. And it is a huge process. I don't want to undermine or underplay that, purchasing a home is a huge, huge step. And it's a huge accomplishment. And I am so proud of each and all the partners that, that I am blessed to work with, but also the courage of the buyers, even in this market, to trust the teams that they are working with to execute on what is usually one of the largest purchases that we will make in our lifetime. So, a couple takeaways: trust your team. Number 2, be flexible. Don't get in your own way. Maybe for sure have a strategy. Know that the first home doesn't always have to be the dream home. And so with that, thank you so much. This was a great conversation, a little bit longer than our typical Tuesdays at 10ish, but we did get started after 10. So thank you so much for tuning in with us live today. Miss Latesha, how can people reach you?
Again, I am Latesha Steele. I am a realtist and real estate broker with Chicago Homes Realty Group. I can be reached via phone at 630-723-4224, or you can email me at Latesha@chicagohomes.com.
Wonderful. And Miss Sanina, how can people get a hold of you?
I am Sanina Ellison Jones. I can be reached at 773-495-2144 or at Chicago Home with an S at SaninaEllison.com. But Latesha's success is our success, so you can reach out to Latesha for your buying needs.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, ladies, for joining me today on Tuesdays at 10ish. I am Cecilia Marlowe with the Federal Savings Bank. If you have questions about first-time homebuyer programs, if you have questions about what type of financing options are available in today's marketplace, if you need a lender that cares and is like a mom, but does mortgages, please feel free to reach out to me as well. I can be reached at 773-547-3677. You can also inbox me on Facebook, follow me on Instagram, and look forward to seeing you guys again on another episode of Tuesdays at 10ish. Until then, have a great day.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.